Okay, welcome to the Guitar Show. This is the coffee chat or coffee morning chat, and here I am in London drinking some coffee, and we're just going to be sort of chatting loosely about a few different things. And so these are just my opinions about a few different subjects that I've sort of kind of caught my interest over the last week, and maybe we might make this sort of a weekly thing if I have anything interesting to say. So first of all, let's just talk about Dumble amps, because I actually did a video a while back where I talked about Dumble amplifiers, and it's got, I think, about 7,000 views now, so people are obviously interested in what I had to say about it. And so just to kind of conclude that, a few observations I've made recently, you know, because I actually use myself in my touring rig, I use a Dumble Overdrive Special clone, which is made by a friend of mine many years ago. In fact, he was one of the first people to clone amps in Europe. And really, he had a kind of a philosophy, and I don't want to mention names because I don't want to, you know, trying to promote somebody over another person. But the guy that made me this Overdrive Special said, "Look, I'm going to build the circuit, the Dumble circuit, all the values, etc. But I'm going to voice this amp myself for my own taste." And I thought, oh, why doesn't he voice it like Dumble does? You know, I'm buying a Dumble clone. I want it to sound like a Dumble amp, you know. And I kind of felt, you know, why is he doing that? And it took me about 10 years to realise that that is actually the best way, because, you know, you don't have Dumble's brain, you don't have his ears, so you might get the right values. But just because you have the right values of the, you know, the components, such as the resistors, transformers, the capacitance, whatever. I think I said that wrong. But you know, even if you have all those values, it's still not going to sound, you know, like a Dumble, because you still then have to play the guitar and then tweak it and then change this cap and change that resistor until then you start to tune the amp in. So even if you do get the values, there's no guarantee that the amp will sound great, you know. So that's kind of one thing to bear in mind when you do buy a Dumble clone. You know, try to go to a maker that has got a good circuit and he's tuned that circuit in so that it sounds good every time, you know. So that's one thing to think about. I mean, there was one guy I was posting on a forum or thread recently, and he said to me, you know, what's all this magic? It's all a load of BS, because as long as you get the right values and readings, you can build a Dumble amp. Well, if that was the case, then all these clones would sound amazing, but they don't. You know, some sound really shit, some sound really good. So, you know, you have to kind of, you know, listen to some clips. You know, go on YouTube and listen to the clips of the amps, and if you think, well, that really sounds, you know, like my favourite, like Larry Carlton or Robin Ford, sounds like his tone, you know, then go and buy that clone. But if it doesn't, if it's just hype and BS, then why are you going to spend, which probably will be a lot of money, on a clone when there's no evidence that it actually does sound like a Dumble? So don't get wowed by famous people playing it, or, you know, or the jargon they use in their promotion. You know, just go on YouTube or try and hear somebody playing it and listen to that amp and think, does that sound like a Dumble? You know. Also, there's many Dumbles with many different sounds, so even Dumble famously said he couldn't recreate one of his own amps. It's going to be slightly different, you know. So Dumble has a kind of certain sound that varies from amps to amps, but all the amps have certain qualities. For example, you know, like a straining, a note flip. You know, I've heard different words like bloom to describe this kind of overdrive, beautiful overdrive sound that a Dumble style amp has. And a good cloner will be able to get those qualities, even if it won't sound exactly like a Dumble. You know, anybody that's played a real Dumble knows that they are very, you know, they're loud amps, and they can be quite hard amps, because, you know, if they were designed back in the 70s and 80s when bands played loud, you know, so they're not designed for nowadays where we're all playing quiet, you know. Well, at least I am. Okay, so this brings me to the next subject we want to talk about. Basically, we're going to speak about out-of-phase pickups, because this is another kind of controversial subject that I've been dealing with. And if you see my last few videos on this channel, you'll see that I've really gone into the history. There was a video I did on Peter Green's guitars and Danny Kerwin's from Fleetwood Mac, And we talk about, like, you know, how he got his Les Paul, and, you know, the fact that in the Blues Breakers this pickup went missing. And some people are saying, well, it went missing because he heard Eric Clapton just riding the back pickup with his Marshall Blues Breaker and had this fabulous tone. So when Peter Green joined the Blues Breakers, he wanted to kind of copy Eric Clapton, so took it out completely because he didn't even use it, and he thought maybe the guitar would resonate. And whilst in the process of taking it out, he, you know, he broke the pickup. So then the story goes that he took it to somebody called Sam Lee, who was a repairer in Selma's shop. And Selma was a very famous shop in London in the 60s, and was sold actually sold late 50s and 1960 bursts. You know, that's where you know, Eric Clapton. I'm not sure Eric Clapton bought his second hand, I think, but certainly Peter Green via that shop bought his Les Paul. It was via somebody else, another store. But anyway, Selma did sell Les Pauls, and the guy that used to do repair work there was called Sam Lee. And apparently Sam Lee was really good at refinishing guitars and the kind of construction of guitars. He was great, but when it came to electronics, he wasn't so good. And so that's really where, you know, the problem, when he put the pickup back, it was out of phase, you know. Then there was a guy called Charlie Chandler, who's still around, and he actually serviced the guitar when Gary Moore had the famous Peter Green Les Paul. And when he took the guitar apart, because it had been damaged in the boot of Gary Moore's car, he took the guitar apart, and he discovered that it had been reverse wound. Okay, now there's a difference between reverse wind and a magnet flip. Okay, if you flip the magnet, as in this pickup here, you're going to get this kind of tone. So I'm going to put everything on maximum. So that's the kind of sound of a guitar which has had a magnet flip on the neck pickup. So let's just compare that to what Charlie Chandler said was Peter Green's Les Paul. He said it was a reverse wind. Let's check that out. So again, everything's on maximum. You probably can't hear that, but the difference, maybe you can. This is a little bit more mellow and, in my opinion, more musical with a reverse wind on the pickup rather than the magnet flip version. So it just depends which version you like. I mean, I do actually like the magnet flip. It's got a charm to itself, but you know, when you put overdrive on this and play very loud, the reverse wind is magical. It's a really, really cool sound. So Charlie Chandler, when he was fixing and repairing Gary Moore's guitar, which was obviously the Greenie Les Paul, he said it was a reverse wind pickup. Now, the problem we have is that nobody knows if Gary Moore changed that pickup. If it was the original pickup, did he change it? Because apparently, I've heard through a few sources that he took his pickups out of the Peter Green Les Paul and he changed them so that he could get the normal, you know, I think when he first got it, he didn't want the outface sound, he wanted the normal sound. So I think there was a bit of, you know, changing going on. So who knows if the original is now with Kirk Hammett from Metallica? Who knows? You know, it might be that it's the replacement that Gary Moore did. So we don't know that. But anyway, you know, suffice to say, before it ended up with Kirk Hammett, there was a group of people in Texas, I think at a Texas guitar show, that got the Peter Green Les Paul and put a magnet to it and tested the polarity of the magnet, and they indeed discovered that the guitar as it is now is actually a magnet flip, not reverse wound. So, you know, but there's no evidence. I haven't seen any evidence on YouTube of somebody putting a magnet to it. It's just hearsay. So whether or not that's true, we don't know. There was also a guy called Doug in a guitar player magazine or some guitar magazine, and he said he did the same. He put a magnet to it and tested to see if it was a magnet flip. So some people are saying it's a magnet flip. Charlie Chandler, who serviced the guitar for 25 years apparently, says it's a reverse wound pickup. And so I guess it's just down to your ears, let your ears be the judge. Whatever the situation of that pickup, it's been great because I've actually explored what a reverse winding out of phase pickup is, and it's now become my favourite. So you know, all those kind of Peter Green sort of style songs. Sound really nice with this reverse wound pickup. It's a really cool sound. So through this whole kind of journey, I've discovered this great pickup. And by the way, big shout out to Mojo Pickups, who was happy to do that for me, because I was on at him about it as well. And you know, so thanks to Mark. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk a little bit about songwriting, and sort of that's one thing I love to do is write songs, and I really sort of recommend that to any sort of guitar player, because a lot of the time guitarists, we spend kind of time, you know, learning other people's songs, learning other people's solos, or improvising along to backing tracks. And it's really good if you can just kind of be creative, you know, and just try to write a song, you know, and then through that kind of process you get better and better. It's a craft, just like learning to play guitar or doing anything in life, you know, the more you do it, the better you're going to get, you know. Which kind of brings me, let me have a sip of the coffee. This is just instant coffee today. It's not real coffee, but the next show we do, I'm going to bring out the real coffee. Okay, so basically, when we're talking about artists that you listen to, a lot of guitar players are listening to the guitar playing. They don't care about the words. They don't care. As long as the singing's in tune and it's pleasant, you're focused on the guitar playing, which is kind of, it's cool, you know, that's totally understandable. And it's great, as you know, music's good, whatever you want to take from it. For example, I was really into Robin Ford, and he made one album called Supernatural, which I really seriously suggest you check out. And what was great about that album is he thought, well, I'm not going to make a guitar player album, I'm going to make a songwriting album. You know, I'm going to really concentrate on my songwriting and hone those skills and make that the focus of this album. And it was a great album. It was a really, really good album. And the guitar playing on it was actually enhanced because of it, because the guitar kind of sat in a great song. You kind of really zoned into it when he did play. And that's always been my favourite album. That's an album that I can just put on in the background, and you know, it's a great Robin Ford album. If we talk about someone like Joe Bonamassa, and you know, I really like Joe Bonamassa. I think he's really good for guitar, you know, especially young guitar players that get into him, and you know, he's a red hot picker and great player, and he has kind of, I guess he's got a problem because he's got to stay in his genre. He can't really veer too much outside, and the problem he's got is it's all been done in that kind of blues rock genre. All the songs have been written, you know, Allman Brothers, Cream, Fleetwood Mac, Free, you know, all the great songs have been written, and it's very, very difficult to do something new without kind of losing the audience that you already have. You know, you can't go and suddenly play reggae music because, you know, your audience are there to hear you play, you know, your blues rock style, in the case of Joe Bonamassa. So he's got a kind of a hard deal, and I think when people say his songwriting is not very good, I think you need to really look at, you know, who he's playing to, and I think if he decided to do as Robin Ford did, I think it would be very difficult to, you know, keep his audience and be a great songwriter. So I don't really hold it against him that his songs aren't great, if that makes any sense, you know. And you know, why do people go and see Joe Bonamassa? Because they want to hear some great guitar playing, you know, with a great, you know, really good band, really good songs. His band's his band members are fantastic musicians, and you know, he's a good singer, and he puts it all together very well. You know, so you know, kudos to Joe Bonamassa. But like I said, it's not really. I wouldn't say, you know, I wouldn't listen to Joe Bonamassa for his songwriting. I would listen to it for the guitaring. There's a lot of on the songwriting front. There's a lot of musicians that sell themselves as a songwriter rather than a guitarist, and that can be a good thing. But you know, I think again, a lot of these young songwriters have it really hard, because all the great songs. When I say all the great songs have already been written, you know, you look at Bob Dylan and George Harrison, who's my favourite, probably songwriter, one of them at least. You know, all these great artists. And what I my one kind of complaint about a lot of modern younger artists is that they tend to write in this kind of style where they're emotionally hurt, or it's an emotional kind of, they're trying to kind of summon this emotional contact, but it's not kind of emotion like Etta James or Nina Simone gets with the audience. It's not that kind of vibe. It's more, I'm kind of living and I'm hard done by. And I kind of think to myself, well, you're not really hard done by. I mean, you're not like a Syrian refugee, or you know, you're not, you know, born in a war-torn country and have to walk 1,000 miles to get some shelter or food, whatever. It's not that situation. You know, life's not that bad. You know, cheer up. But at the same time, you know, why don't you choose a subject in your songs? You know, why don't you write about something interesting? And a lot of those guys in the 60s, like George Harrison, and I'm a massive fan of Harry Nilsson, for example, you know, and their songs would be really interesting, really clever. Randy Newman's another case in point, or Tom Waits, you know, and they kind of choose subjects and they paint a picture with their words, and it's not this kind of emotional, hard done by thing that's going on. So, you know, for me, I just don't buy that, you know, especially from, you know, these young guitar players or young musicians. I think, you know, harden up, you know, write some interesting subjects in your songs, you know, just write something cool, you know, or you could just do what Paul McCartney does and you know, just write great melodies, you know. I mean, that's the thing with Paul McCartney. You've got to remember, he had incredible, you know, he's sometimes the melody would go, you know, at the bottom of the stave to the top, you know, it would have a big jump, you know, really clever melodies. And with Paul McCartney as well, he was very influenced by music hall, because when he was a young kid, he was an accompanist. He had to learn all the songs for the older generation up in Liverpool. And so he got to know all these song forms and all, you know, the A-B sections and codas, and you know, and that was an amazing training for him, so that when he went off and wrote his own music, he really had a lot of depth there and a well of, you know, music to draw from. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to finish my coffee off, and wherever you are in the world, wish you a good day. And let me know your comments, your thoughts about what I've said, because, you know, this is just my opinion. I could be wrong on everything, or else you could kind of like agree with me on a few things. But even so, leave me a message, and hope to see you soon. Take care.